So Matt, tell me about these problems in detail.
So before I, kind of answer that problem, at least let me back the research and I guess tell you how I discovered the problems, right? In 2014, I really made a cognitive decision to start working on the business and not working in the business, and much more than just what's our branding and marketing archetype and customer service and P&L and balance sheet, not any of that, but really I stepped back to just understand the system of youth basketball and really how it works, right? Because for me, I think it was important to really get down all the problems in a non-judgmental way, right? I had to lay down the confirmation biases and cognitive dissonance and all of that stuff, and accept just in reality, objectively, here's what was going on. So then I could figure out what could we do to fix it, right? Because for me, it wasn't about that anybody was doing something necessarily wrong or had intent, right, to do anything wrong. We're all trying to help these kids. So this was just going to be my contribution to the sport, right, how I could upgrade it. So 2014, I went back over to Paris. I went to Rome. I went to England. I sat down with club coaches and owners of clubs to really understand the European system. I came back here and I interviewed some of Chicago's legendary coaches, my AAU coach, Sonny Parker. I sat down with him and to really, again, just to understand. And at that point, that's when I wrote The Revolution, which was a 30-page dissertation on youth sports, right, and kind of laid it all out. So from a skilled trainer standpoint, here's what I found, right? And I'm a coach, so I like to be up on the dry erase board when I can be, right? So from just a trainer standpoint, really a lot of it is no guidance and they're undermanaged, okay? There's no leadership for skilled trainers, right? I always have said there's no degree to get in, and I've benefited from that. So again, none of the stuff I'm saying is in this judgmental way, but you can't go get a degree in skilled training from any college, right? So a lot of this is guys that either play high school ball, you play college ball, you play professionally, and that's the track in basketball in which you decide to take. Not coaching, not reffing, right? You're not a player anymore, so I want to do skill development. But there's nobody to follow, right? There's nobody to guide you on what you should teach, when you should teach it, what's appropriate for this age, what might be appropriate for this gender. Nobody can help you with that, right? So what do most guys do? They end up following NBA trainers, okay? Because that's a logical decision to make. But the issue is, if you're working with youth, those are two different skill sets. All right, you are literally building a car when you're working with a kindergarten, first, second, third, fourth, all the way up through eighth, right, opposed to working with a college player or an NBA or WNBA player where they're already built and you're adding on to it, right? So none more important than the other. It's just two different skill sets. So there's no leadership for skilled trainers to follow right away. So from day one, you're on your own, really just kind of regurgitating whatever was taught to you. But that's kind of dangerous, though, because what if that person wasn't taught correctly, right? And that's something now mom and dad are paying for, maybe some information that's not so correct, right? So there's no real guidance there, right? And then there's no management. Okay, so you got generally a young man, young woman, and we're young, right? And we're into the skill training stuff, but maybe we don't have these business skills that we would 10 and 15 years from now. So what's that mean? Maybe we're not answering the phones, right, when parents are calling, okay? Maybe we don't start sessions on time. Maybe we don't show up on time, all right? And just the overall professionalism isn't there. Naturally, when we're a little bit younger than it would be when we're a little bit older, right? Again, but that comes with no leadership, but there's no management. There's nobody on top of you to say, hey, answer the phone. Hey, this is when you need to start. Hey, make sure your shirt's tucked in. Hey, have your logo on, right? Some of these different things that you would see in normal businesses, you just don't see with skilled trainers, right? And what about R&D, right? Where's the research and development? Because basketball is constantly evolving. When I was even playing, and that wasn't that long ago, there wasn't a Euro step, there wasn't a James Harden step back, right? There wasn't veer steps, there wasn't all these different moves and concepts and ideas that are going on in basketball right now. So if you're not constantly researching and seeing how these different concepts are developing and evolving, right, then you're teaching an outdated version of the game. Okay, again, you're talking about kids now, talking about the skill trainer giving bad information then to those players, right? But to do some research and development, that takes some time, right? And there's this taboo thing in youth sports, I get it, where we don't want to talk about money, but at the end of the day, how am I supposed to sit in front of the computer? How am I supposed to go to these clinics? How am I supposed to go back overseas and really do some research, really hone my craft? If I don't have any money to do it, I can't feed myself, right? So then now what's going to happen? You're not making enough money to survive, so then that trainer's got to go get a job, so you got a 9 to 5 now. Well, You get done with a 9 to 5, you're probably a little bit tired. That could lead to not answering the phone, not showing up on time because, hey, I had to work late at the office. All of these things are real issues that actually happen that I have seen and continue to see, right? If all of a sudden we get through all this layers, right, and somebody's like, you know what, I got to do some group lessons, then all of a sudden the quality dips because you got a 4th grader in the same group as a 9th grader because maybe you haven't worked on the business, you haven't worked on the marketing, so now all of a sudden now you have too many kids in a group, so your player to coach ratio might be off, or you just have a wide age variance or talent variance in that group, so now you have a bad curriculum. Now we get into the curriculum. What if you are good? What if we made it through all this stuff and you do have a good skill coach? They are super awesome. Everything's going well. What about this retention? Because remember I said, the thing that I found was, hey, if you are good at this, people are going to keep on coming back. And that's what you want. And that's awesome. That's great. But now what? Right? The stuff that you worked on to teach, now that's gone now, right? Now you got to start doing some research. Now you got to start doing some development. So do you go to drilling on an island where you just start doing this thing and adding on to this thing and adding on to this thing, and now all of a sudden we're teaching stuff to a 7th grader that's never going to work in their game, right? Or are you going into translation? Those start to be the issues that I've seen. And so on average, what I've seen is trainers will stay in this for like 3 years, right? They'll have that first year where all of a sudden they're the new kid on the block. And I'm telling you this from having been that, right? Like, oh man, because everybody's flocking over to the new trainer. This is the new person in town. You got to go to them. You got to go to them. You got to go to them. Okay. Well, people start coming back to you. You don't have business skills. You're not answering your phone. Maybe you don't have consistent gym time. Like you don't have all these issues, right? Year 2, you start to plateau, and then year 3, they start to fade out. Right? These are the problems that I've seen. And the big issue with all this, because this is all just about the trainer, we realize they're in charge of kids' dreams while all of this is going on, right? So it might not be that they have this malicious intent or they're this bad person. There are real obstacles that trainers are going to go through that are real problems that ultimately are going to lead to poor player experience, and then that's going to lead to them not maximizing their potential.